Hello, welcome to Animazing, the stories of Kevin Seymour. I'm your host, Aramis, and this is whatever episode I feel like whenever this gets out.
Post production Aramis. This is episode 13 of the show.
Today I have a very special guest by the name of Mimi Woods.
Hello.
So, yeah, I am very, very fortunate that I was able to connect with her thanks to the wonderful and amazing Tom Fahn, who I had
Yep.
on the show, I think for my last interview that I did, who, absolute ball of joy right there. Him and the rest of the Fahn clan are just absolute sweethearts.
Yeah, they're magic.
They really are. And I've even, for this connection, I was surprised. One of my super fans, because yes, I have a single super fan for this. I love him.
Wow.
He was shocked that I was even able to find you, let alone get a hold of you. So
because I'm supposed to be so reclusive. All it really means is that I'm just not in the industry anymore.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
I'm not reclusive.
Well, no, I know he's going to get a kick out of this episode whenever it goes live. So I know he'll be excited for that. But yeah.
Oh,
but
that's sweet.
No, he's been a great help, especially with a lot of this early stuff. I know he's going to listen to this and be like, "You're talking about me." But no, he especially with digging through a lot of the stuff with Guyver and Orgus and a bunch of the. I think there's
Oh my
5 or 6.
gosh.
Oh, yeah, Blast from the Past.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Macross, Fiverr.
Yeah, Ambassador Magma.
Yeah, there's so many of, like I said, we didn't get a lot of pre information before we would go in. So, some of these parts and some of these people, these voices that we did, we would just kind of show up and be, you'd get the page and you'd be like, oh, okay. And it was on your feet sort of working. It was a great experience, really.
Oh, it sounds, from the stories I've heard from Victor and from Tom, or he's called him Tommy, from Dorothy. It sounds like it was a wild ride. I've heard about, some of the first few sessions, there were these lavish meals that they immediately stopped because it was too expensive.
Can't do that anymore. What are we doing?
And recording all in the same room back in the cave.
Well, yeah, like 3 stands set up, 3 mic stands, and yeah, because it was a room.
And then I think a lot of that stuff that ended up getting recorded in the cave got remixed by Les Claypool at his house. From
yes, probably out of necessity.
Oh yeah, but no, it's incredible how much you listen to it. Like Guyver, I've binged through Guyver recently, and you think, hearing where it was recorded. How did he get it to sound as well as it did? It's
well, incredible. I think Les Claypool was, I mean, he was kind of this master sort of engineer guy who, we kind of all met him, and it was like, oh, okay, he was really such an important part of everything when we started doing more and more work. And then he had the studio at his house, which was nuts because it was in his garage. And all I remember is walking in and going, wow, egg cartons are everywhere. They're everywhere. And and we all talked about it, like, did you see all the egg cartons on Les's studio? But man, it was a great place to work.
It sounds like it. I hadn't heard about the egg cartons. I knew it was, old school, but egg cartons.
Oh my God. Well, that's what it looked like, either like egg carton or like the foam.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure how he did it, but you would look up at the ceiling and go, that was the first thing that came into my head. It was like egg cartons. Like, are you using egg cartons like stuffed with foam? Is that what's happening here? But he MacGyvered it, and it was, we worked there quite a lot.
Yeah, because as you mentioned, you mentioned you have a bunch of stories. You have stories from the cave. I think the early days, it started at the cave and then transitioned to Les's garage, and then
Yeah,
from
it
there.
was Les's at his. I think it was his mom's house. I think it. I mean, don't. I'm. That might
I'll
not
have to
be
ask.
correct.
I'll have to ask.
It was. I'm not sure if that was his house or if it was his parents' house. I'm not sure, but suddenly, and it's been so long. I can't even remember how many times we were at the cave.
Yeah.
But I do remember coming in and doing like doubles or trios where we would all just be doing our bits at the same time. And then, then we would go and I'm not even remembering very well how he had us set up in the garage studio. Um, I just remember the egg cartons and I don't remember if there was a booth or there must have been something. I don't remember, but I'm sure Tommy probably remembers more.
Right.
But yeah, he was a hoot too. He was fun.
Oh yeah. So okay. This whole podcast, this whole project is to kind of remember, old animes, old LA Hero, and the man, Kevin Seymour. I'm curious,
Mm.
do you have any particular, it's been so long, but any memories, working with Kevin on any of the projects that you did work on? Either, I know there were most of them were side roles, supporting roles, and then of
Yeah.
course you have. We'll get there in a minute, but you have your big one that everyone knows you for being Ghost in the
Mm.
Shell. The
Yeah.
the from what I've heard, the madman of a movie that was basically made in the span of only a few weeks for the dub, which is insane.
It was really fast. I it was really fast, Aramis.
Yeah,
As far as it. I'm trying to remember the schedule, but I honestly feel like it was over a week.
it was. I think it was
It was
weeks.
done over a week
Yeah,
to 2 weeks, but it was, and some days would be heavier than other days, but it went real quick.
oh, yeah. That tracks with what I heard from Mary Claypool, because she was the main script writer for that. So
Right.
I think the first week was her just do being flown to Japan working on it, and then
Hmm.
coming back. I think that one
And
was
then,
at Mag 8, and
yeah,
just
we did that at Mag 8. There were some other things, and you'll have to forgive me. I don't remember specifically which. After moving from the cave and going to Les's garage, and then coming to Mag 8, of what I did where, but
yeah,
it was that small because I did a lot of like B voices, where it was like the broadcaster or like the news broadcaster or just different side
yeah.
voices that I would do. And I just remember I think I always worked at Mag 8 in that small studio with, I called it a refrigerator. I don't know what other people called it, but to me, it was like, please step into our icebox and we will close the door, and please don't be claustrophobic at all. And there was a window. It was like I have this memory of a small, you felt like you were kind of in a space like, okay, I'm going to be jettisoned somewhere. I'm in a pod, because you would feel like all they can see of me is my face, and have your headphones on, and then you'd be watching it, and then you'd be working, and then you'd have to come up to breathe because there was no air in there. So you'd do a bit of work, and then Kevin would, and he was so quiet most of the time, and he had to take numerous breaks because he's smoked. So he would take smoke breaks, and then it was like, oh, I'm taking a smoke break, please open the door. So thank you for letting me open the door so that I may breathe, because there's no air in here, Kevin.
Yeah,
Um,
the legendary crack door for air method.
oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, and it's like you get the sign language of do you need to open the, like, are you good? Do you need to open the door? And you'd be like, yes, dying right now. Oh, okay, I'll open the door. Okay, well, I'll take a smoke break so you can breathe, and I'll be back. And you're like, thank you, that's so kind.
And then they'd for Wallas, they would stuff like 2 or 3 people in that refrigerator.
Oh my God, yes. Like if you were, yeah, I forgot. You'd be doing, yeah, you'd be in there with a couple people. I think I remember being in there with Dorothy, and I don't remember on what piece it was, but it was a battle scene, and so we were doing a lot of we were doing a lot of that,
Yeah.
and and or hua, huh, we were doing all of those sounds, and we would be cracking up so much because you're standing 4 inches away from your friend, your coworker,
Yeah.
and in this tiny little refrigerator iceboxy little booth. It was pretty fun. It was pretty fun. Looking back on it, you're like, oh my God, it was crazy. But at the same time, like, how awesome is that? It was so cool.
Oh yeah. Now that tracks. I think from what I've heard, like Tom and Dorothy had their fair share being stuck in the booth with someone. Like that was the first time I ever heard the story of crack door for air. It was from Michael Sorich, who
Oh, okay.
it was. I think and this is coming from both him and from Tom. I think the first time they ever worked with him was for a Wallace scene, and it was him,
Mm-hmm.
Tom, and Dorothy all stuck in that refrigerator.
And you have to understand the size of that thing to put 3 people in it, and with that little, it was like I liken it to a porthole.
Yeah.
where you're like, okay, we can only see forward, and and you're kind of just sardined in there next to each other, shoulder to shoulder, so 3 of you are using air in that room, or 2 of you, or whatever. And then and then he's like, oh, did you crack door for air? You're like, oh, thank you. But but he got what he got the sound he wanted out of that. So and I didn't work. I know they had at Mag 8, they had more than one studio there.
Yeah.
I believe, but I didn't work in the bigger one. I only worked in that. I did Ghost in the Shell in that little one.
Yeah. And no, honestly, I think Ghost in the Shell was the first episode I actually tackled for the podcast, because
Okay.
I had to pick a start point. I was like, which one? And out of all of them, that one felt like the big. It's what I had access to. But I was like, I want to do one on a film. I want to do one that I really enjoy, because this is in my top 5 for Animaze stuff.
Right.
And so being able to tackle that, my first episode was not the best paced. It was not.
Well,
but and whenever you get an email or a call from Joe Ramersa saying like, "Hey, you want me to edit that for you?"
you're like, oh.
And
I see.
I took it on the chin. I can say that Joe Ramersa edited my first episode, and that's something that's really cool.
That's actually, yeah.
It is. No, he did, and he sent me
Great.
a little demo of how to tighten things up. Because I was a dummy and was like, okay, I'm not gonna edit this. I'm just gonna put it out in the world raw. And I've never done that since. I've always either tightened things up, or if there's been like technical difficulties, I'll cut those out. I think there's one of my Tom interview where our Zoom call like died, so I had to cut out like 5 minutes while that like fixed itself.
Right.
So,
oh, jeez.
But
learning lessons.
It was, and honestly, it was a good starting point, because I see it as like that. Like you look at the stuff that came before Ghost and after Ghost. You're like, wow. Like after Ghost, because Ghost would have been 96.
Right.
You had I think you had Akira, you had Bebop, Trigun. You
Right.
had all these like bigger,
just so much stuff. Yeah.
And then of course you had the other, I think there was Gun. They did things, a lot of Bandai stuff, so you had some Gundam stuff in there. I think that would have been after. And then of course they continued to work on Ghost in the Shell all the way up until, I want to say,
the mid 2000s, the late 2000s.
It's like 09, I want to say, because it was.
Oh, okay.
which that I still need to watch it. And I'll say this now, and I know I probably won't regret it. I've listened to, if I get near full later, I'll get near full later. But
Hmm.
I argue that your performance as Major Kusanagi, I would have loved to have seen it brought back for Innocence just to keep the continuity there, considering it was a direct sequel. But I would
Right.
have loved to have seen that what if of you taking the Major like through the TV shows if you hadn't left it
Mm-hmm.
behind. I would have loved to have seen it because I don't like just the dynamic of the characters. I know specifically for with your performance. I'm sorry, I'm fanboying a little bit, so bear with me. But just
Aw.
it is one of my favorites. Yeah, I got a giant
Well,
movie
I really,
poster.
really appreciate that because I think, it was acting that, and remember,
Yeah,
again, it was like you're coming in and I didn't have a full script.
yeah,
So like you said, Mary was doing a lot of that work and coming in, you there was some heavy stuff in that.
oh yeah,
There was some there's some heavy conversations, philosophical conversations, about identity and in that dialogue that was written and coming in, it was heavy stuff to work with. So I appreciate it.
oh yeah. No, like I think now that I'm in front of you, I think the only piece of clunkiness from that I actually pointed out in my first episode was it was whenever y'all were recording for it was the scuba scene, and it's
Okay.
you and Richard's character Bato, and it's a very like philosophical monologue that you're reading out. And to
Yeah,
me,
man.
I felt like it. To me, knowing the timeline now, I think I said it could have used a little bit more time to bake or a few more takes. But knowing that
Mm-hmm.
it took 2 weeks in a sense, you're doing one or two takes per scene before you
Yeah.
have to move on to the next one. Like
Yeah.
some of my favorite things are those monologues. Looking back at
And
them,
there was a conversation from, you know, and Kevin was just so great because he really, he directorially, he was just, okay, you go. Let's see how you go. and and then there was, so you'd go and you'd do a take, and then there was, okay, um do we need to pull her back? Do we need to, we'd have that discussion, and that was what I appreciated so much, because he was so passionate about all of this work that he really did, he did want to, um it was character forward, it was story forward. So working with him was great in that he wanted to dialogue with you about how it was going. Sometimes it would be, we wouldn't agree. Sometimes I'd be putting more emotion or uh uh more emotion into the character, and he'd go, I think you might need to pull her back a bit based on her conflicted kind of, her reality of being, her physical makeup, her her, how she was feeling about her own state and all of those things. He would be like, well, should we pull her back? Should we, should she be more emotional? So it was a great dialogue to have with him, and he was really very caring about that, in working, even though we were working at a lightning pace.
oh yeah, and there were scenes that I even heard had to be rewritten in like day of recording
Yeah. Yep.
because there was like they missed the mouth flaps. They Mary wrote it without mouth flaps in mind, but there were mouth flaps that she couldn't see in her 280p footage that she had to work with.
Right. Oh my gosh.
But no,
Yeah.
just that just those discussions. Oh god, that's one of like the core
So then
things.
you'd have those discussions, you'd have them from a performance standpoint, right? And
Yeah,
then it would be, okay, I think there's some technical stuff that needs to be done. We need to talk about the dialogue.
Yeah.
itself. And then that would be okay. So we move, so then you kind of move on. We're going to retake that. But, it's in process. So you'd move on and then you'd go back.
Oh yeah. Like he was a master of his craft, and he was very passionate. And from what I've also
Yeah.
heard, he was very much true to the characters. He was very
Oh,
much.
yeah.
He wanted it to like. It didn't have to be a tonal match. It had to be a character match. Like,
Right.
is this performance still delivering the same that either the Japanese or the original? If it was manga inspired, was it still
Right.
deriving that? And
Right.
I think with the performances from Ghost, because I like to bounce. If I bounce, I'm sorry, but no,
That's okay.
With Ghost, you had your performance being pulled back a little bit, but then you had somebody like Tom Weiner who played your opposite.
Hmm.
The major's opposite being the puppet master. This machine who
Right.
is expressing more emotions than the major, even though he is a machine. And that
Right.
dichotomy, having the monologues from both his character and yours, kind of being this dichotomy of
Right.
what the message was.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful story, and
Hmm.
it baffles me how how much passion was put into it, and every other project moving forward, and even before. Like, it's rare to see passion from the start. Like, not passion, but like the quality alongside the passion. Like, is that
Right.
perfect recipe of like, yeah, things got better and better as time went on, but just from the start.
Oh, yeah. I don't think there was ever a time from the time we worked at the cave to being over with Les at the house to Mag 8 to any time I ever worked. I don't think there ever was a doubt that of the importance of Kevin's dedication and commitment to that this it wasn't just I think there was a point where we all realized, like, wow, this is you know he's serious about this. And that ups everybody's game, right? But I never think there was a time where he wasn't focused on the quality and the dedication and commitment to the story. It was so obvious with him.
Yeah. And that tracks with everyone mentions like, oh, I don't have much to say, but like everything that people say that they do remember, they do just from working with him, little habits like him smoking or just his passion.
Yeah.
It was like
Well,
his hunch, how he walked, how he carried himself. It cascades. It does. Everyone thinks I don't have
yeah.
much, but when enough people, both still and in the industry and those who are out of the industry, like you have
Hmm.
100 people saying the same thing about a man.
Hmm.
It it
Oh, yeah.
it delivers that punch, because there's really what drove me to Kevin, besides him, like his later work really pulled me out of a dark place. Um,
Wow.
it did. Like, I got a stake in this too,
Right.
but
Right.
there was nothing on him. Somebody who had such a significance in hundreds of people's lives, both behind the curtain with many actors and engineers, to
Right.
audiences, and
Well,
there's nothing.
and and that's really interesting. I have a son, and my son is 25, and he's got a group of people that he hangs with, and one of which is an absolute anime um fan, and knows about so many of these of the work that we did back then. Like, oh, I have that. Oh, I have that. And these are the next generation of people. But I don't know. They know the work, but and they appreciate the art, but I don't know if they know about him
And that's what I'm trying to
specifically.
fix. At least,
Right.
I think I was telling Miriam, like, even if only one person watches this and it's been made, I'll be happy. and
Oh yeah. I mean,
she's
because there are people, I mean, of course it's huge now. Yes, of course it's huge.
it,
But, my son's up in San Francisco. He's at university and he mentions to somebody that, oh yeah, my mom did that voice, and they were like, "Wait, what?" And there are kids out there in the next generation that are just everyone's like these huge fans, and it's really good what you're doing. They need to know, who kind of birthed that.
oh yeah, I
And
say
I think,
he was the godfather of anime out of LA.
yeah, he
Because
was. He really was. And it's like, when you're in there at the time, you don't know you're in the presence of greatness until you look back and go, well, you know, crap, you know,
yeah,
I got to work with that guy. That's amazing.
and that emotion, the like I call it the stories for a reason. When my
Mm-hmm.
goal is to, if I can make enough people have that ear to ear grin listening to these
Mm-hmm.
stories or watching whenever the documentary is made, because
Mm-hmm.
I am working on it. Like
That's wonderful.
I
That's really wonderful.
it's like I already have my ending planned, and this I'll mention it here. It's I'm collecting as many voice clips as I can, either from
Oh
people
God.
but specifically it's all the same phrase. It's thank you, Kevin, and I plan on
Oh,
editing them as this like crescendo where it's
oh, that's beautiful, man.
so I'll make sure to
That's
grab one from you if possible to add it.
Oh, wow, that's beautiful. I
So
just remember, I mean, like you say, Ghost was so it was fast. And in my head, I was like, okay, I'm staying in the moment, and I'm trusting him, and we're on the ride, and we're just gonna do it.
yeah,
Um, but it's something that, looking back now, that is something I'm really grateful for. And I really do thank him for that opportunity, and um, for the work he put in. And, if I went back, and in preparation just to talk to you, I mean, I'm looking back at some of the work, and I'm like, God, there was so much stuff that we did, so the output was a lot.
there was at
And
least like a dozen or so like TV shows and movies that came out between
yeah,
92 to 97. It
I mean, there's so much more. I mean, I was looking back at what, I worked on and everything like that, but there's so much more than just, what I was involved with. And, Tommy and Dorothy carried it so much further.
they did.
And, and he does need to be recognized for that. He really does.
He really does. Like I always, my favorite of his, in my opinion, what was his magnum opus, and it was called Gios. It was,
Okay.
came out around, it was recorded in '08, so right near the end. Like there was
Mm.
only a few more things that got recorded after that, but that one, it had, everyone who had worked on that show had worked with him countless times,
Hmm.
and
He had a group, he had like
he
his
did.
go-tos.
He did. But this one, the cast was so big that he had to use
Hmm.
everyone. And the way his style never changed. Even these actors, they still used paper scripts. They weren't allowed to read ahead. I got a good
No.
story I'm going to mention on my show whenever I get to it. But it was about, I mentioned to you earlier, Michelle Ruff. She had done reading for her character, and as she's reading her final lines for her character, she's she's bawling up because she couldn't read ahead. And it's just one of those things that style of writing, that style of reading. Like, now you mentioned now that everyone's a fan, so you have the
Hmm.
current actors who have already read the entire manga. They know what's
Yeah.
coming, and
Hmm.
and I've got to work with these guys for some of my side work, and they're really cool people. But
Hmm.
it's interesting how the way that Kevin did things, was You had, it was paper scripts with highlighter on them. It was
Oh yeah.
there was no
Oh yeah.
beeps. There was no beeps. You
Nope.
just had, okay, at this time you got to start reading. Go. And
Right. I mean, you had very little time from the time you got your pages. And you could try to score them yourself in the time you had, but you were already in the booth at that point.
yeah.
So that was it, I don't know, it's kind of guerrilla style, just really just kind of diving in, and he wanted to see what you could do and what God, I don't remember him stepping in a lot. I remember him, here you go, there it is, go.
Yeah.
And you'd go, and that was, he'd either be like, that's it, or he'd be like, one more.
Very
And
few words, but
yeah.
and mind you, he was like funny. Like it's not like he would just direct as well. He would not. He would sometimes step in the booth to kind of give demonstration of how he would want to take. Like this is like, I think one story I heard. He would step in to help this. Somebody who didn't know about there were no beeps, or there were beeps, or
Mhm.
there were a few. He would also
Yeah.
record some characters that were in a bunch of these shows. He
Oh
would
yeah. Oh yeah.
dozen
Oh yeah. He
pseudonyms.
was really good.
Oh, he
He was.
was like his. I'll send you it later, but there's one where he plays a villain
Mhm.
alongside Mary Elizabeth McGlynn, who took over for the role of Major Kusanagi. But it's them
Yeah.
just going like, one's a spoiled princess with the powers of King Midas, so
Mhm.
turns everything into, instead of gold, it's balloons. And you have Kevin being this mad cat, like deranged, like dude's laughing like almost like a joker.
Right.
And like he loves doing that, and he loves just doing like crazy, like either really really like crazy, or he likes like crotchety old men.
Yeah. Crazy evil.
Yes.
Or
Crotchety, like
yeah.
he's a
But you know
ghost.
what he knew what his niche was.
Oh yeah, but he loved playing the fun roles. Like, I think the first time I heard him, because I had to dive whenever I was learning about Kevin. I not only dived into his work of anime, but I
Mhm.
dived into his taste of music, and I also
Mm.
I also tracked down. I don't know if you knew this, but he was one before all this. He was in a band.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and you can kind of hear a bit of like his like how he made like it shows like how he could use his voice so well. There was only one vinyl that they released, but I
Mhm.
use that vinyl as the opening sting of this podcast, as like
And
my
you have that vinyl? You found that vinyl?
I found the vinyl, and
Wow.
I was able to get it sealed. I cracked it
Wow.
open, and I've since digitized it. So,
Oh, that's amazing.
oh yeah,
That's really cool.
it is. No, like the only person who got it initially was Joe Ramersa. Like of course, he has one. Of course, he has the same
Oh,
vinyl
okay.
I do, but he got it and immediately, because it's just he. But
Mhm.
no, Kevin, like he could belt some stuff out, like crazy laughs. Just he
That's amazing.
he's an
But it
artist.
doesn't surprise me, you know what I mean? It doesn't surprise. I didn't know about that, but somehow that just doesn't surprise me with Kevin,
Oh
because
yeah,
he seemed like a real true creative in that there was a lot of levels to him.
oh yeah,
And and yet he was this kind of quiet, when you'd work with him, when he'd be at the board, he'd be pretty quiet,
yeah.
and but that doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah. Well, for being
That's
such
awesome.
like a suit, like he would be considered like he was a true fan of the medium. I think I was joking with Tommy that these conventions that are mainstream now, Kevin would
Mm-hmm.
be Kevin would be the type of person who would walk around and like check out all these booths of all these figures and manga and everything versus being behind a table. Like
Right. He'd want to be part of, he'd want to explore
he'd want
the
to,
con
yeah.
as opposed to just being a feature of it.
Oh yeah. But even
Oh,
then,
yeah.
like, there isn't a
That's
lot.
just a true fan, though, right?
Yeah.
That's just such a true fan.
No,
And that's what he brought.
it's I think
That's his starting point, I think, is that he was a true fan.
he was.
And that's how he brought it to, and yet he achieved so much that people don't know. People don't realize.
They don't, and it doesn't help that he used 11 billion pseudonyms to do it. He, there were
Yeah.
some where he had 3 pseudonyms. I think in Ghost, because Ghost is the one I have so much memory of it just because it's the first episode that I did. He used 3 pseudonyms. He used one for a director credit. He used one for his main role in Ghost in the Shell, and then he used one for his B rolls. Like Man Falling Off a Ferry had a different credit than Garbage Man B.
Well, he probably thought that was fun.
He probably did.
I'm gonna make this fun.
He loved like that.
These are all my personalities and all my dimensions and all my personalities. He's giving them to you that way.
Yeah. And just I love hearing the stories from all these different people, and the fact that I'm grateful that you got back to me. When your name was on my list, and I used to work in IT and cyber. I still kind of do, but I'm a contractor now. And whenever I did like preliminaries on who can I get in touch with, and at the bottom it was you, because I was like, there's nothing. And even my buddy, one of my supporters was like, if you could get a hold of Mimi, that'd be incredible. And I'm like, it is gonna be a long
See,
shot.
all you had to do was talk to Tommy.
No, Tommy, it's funny. I can easily say how Tommy was even tricky to get to, because I had to jump through, like, I think the domino was that finally got me to Tommy it was Skip Stelrecht.
Skip!
I love Skip.
I know Skip.
He,
Skip and I were in we were in a theater company together in Hollywood, Friends and Artists Theater. Skip is, I think, an original member of that company, and oh my God, he's hilarious.
Oh, he is. He was he got me. It was funny. I was talking with him at a show, and he got me in touch with Mary Claypool. He also asked for an updated headshot, because I keep up as an interview with my archive, and the headshot that I had was old.
He asked you for a headshot.
I uploaded a new headshot into my archive of him, and then I also got photos from Seymour, from Kevin's memorial, from him and from Mary, and then from Mary, it got she got me in touch with a few different people, but specifically Tommy. But it took Jameson Price, who was brought in by Dorothy. Like I said, it's Spider.
Yeah, because I know Jameson because I don't know Jameson. I know his wife Bethany, and she's another Long Beach State graduate. And I believe that's Jameson Price, right? I believe that's.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, but he came in, I believe, after me, because Dorothy brought him in. So yeah, it's just this weird, crazy kind of.
It's a spider web.
Incestuous little family.
It's a spider web. Like,
yeah,
you follow it. Like, it's very much, this person brought me in, but then that person was brought in by this person, and it all just spiders up. But no, I attribute Jameson to one of the reasons why I started this, just for the fact that I sat down with him just for like an hour and just talked, and I went in real time down the rabbit hole, and he listened. And then at the very end of it, I was like, why has nobody done anything? Why has nobody told this story yet? Especially with, friends and, these no one's getting any younger. So
We could all go at any moment.
we could it's like Kevin left way too soon. He's been gone now
Oh,
for 12 years.
yeah, that was really sad
Yeah,
to hear about that.
yeah,
And I think Tommy let me know about that.
yeah.
And
They
like
have
he,
yeah. I'll send you a link to the memorial page I have of him. From
oh, I would appreciate that. Thank you. That would be great because I remember feeling like, oh wow, because you know, I would have thought he had
oh, and what
so much more to do.
I think he would have I try to think about what he would have kept doing, and I know a bunch of the stuff he did, and that he would have a lot of stuff after he passed away. A lot of that stuff ended up going to other dubbing studios. A lot of them, I think,
Right.
were a lot of the big ones were taken by the Texas-based ones. But
Oh,
I always wonder how he would have handled them. Like I said this to I'll truncate it, but as I mentioned, Code Geass was my favorite, and Kevin and Mary and Les and everyone who worked on it just it's one of those that is so infused with love, and it didn't have a
yeah.
manga. It didn't have a manga, so it was pure adaptation. Like they didn't
Mm-hmm.
have a source material, and then Kevin's best friend, Robert Napton, one of his best friends, helped make sure that the manga made it to the West, that they did work on after the fact. But
Right.
they ended up continuing. They did a spin-off series from that did okay, but then
Mm-hmm.
they did a movie that was a direct sequel to the anime that the Kevin and them dubbed, and everyone came back and reprised their roles from back
Oh,
then,
that's
and
amazing.
they carried the same kind of conviction that Kevin, it felt like Kevin was spiritually behind the booth for that. And then
Mhm.
lastly, finally they did a sequel anime. It was almost like a bottle episode where
Yeah.
none of the original cast was there because the plot, there were a few cameos, but the plot was it was stuck in a bubble. And the
Mm-hmm.
director they got for that, I actually really liked his work. It was NYAV Post. It was a New York based one, and I got to
Okay.
talk to the director of that, who started. He did a lot of audio engineering back in the day as well. And I told him, I'm like, this felt like a spiritual successor to what Kevin. I think I hold this in the same regards to how Kevin would have dubbed it. And
Oh, that's
he knew of Kevin, and he was very honored of that. He's a very sweet man. The guy I
right.
talked to, just I wonder what Kevin would have done. I think, he might have done
Mm-hmm.
some Gundam stuff. He might have done. He loved robots. Just from
Mm-hmm.
looking at what Kevin worked on, psychological, deep
Uh-huh. Yeah.
robots, and the
Philosophical questions and,
yes,
identity and who am I and
like
where do I fit in?
and I think that was his bread and butter. You have
Hmm.
films like Perfect Blue, which was, if you ever
Right.
seen if you know of it, or Black Swan, it's very
Right.
psychological, or
Right.
the ghost stuff. Just there's a lot. Or he loved
Hmm.
dark comedy, dark humor, like
Oh,
humor.
yes. He seemed to be such a fan of dark humor. Just working with him, he had a sharp and very kind of cryptic humor, I always thought, which I appreciate wholeheartedly. Um, and that's what made him kind of fun to work with because he was so quiet
Yeah,
and yet, and I didn't see him, because I stopped at a certain point, Tom and Dorothy saw him beyond that. But, and from what I've heard from them, he had his moments of brevity you know, but they were few and far between when you worked with him and he'd catch you off guard, you'd be like, wait, what did you just say? And and wait, say that again. And then we'd all laugh, but it was just these quiet comments that he would make that, you know I just appreciated that so much in him. He was very willing to go dark a little bit.
Yeah, and I'm glad, that, as I mentioned to you earlier, most people I've talked to, if not all of them, have had, they have appreciated how Kevin has touched their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, that is, by the end of it, that is the raw emotion, I'm capturing with this, is hundreds of people, touched by this quiet, eccentric
Artist.
exactly.
And he, and like I said in the very beginning, because I've known, for so many of us, me and Tom, and I've known Jonathan forever, and I've known Melissa forever.
Yeah.
It feels like forever at this point, because we're still pretty tight. And at the time when we just started this, and Tommy brought the family in, and he brought me in, it was like, oh, we're gonna do this. We're all together. We already love each other. We're already tight.
Yeah.
And we're gonna do this. And then it became something else, which we all were like, wow, we got to be part of that. And we had no idea going in, and that's I think the real appreciation, and especially, hindsight is always 2020. You look back and you're like, oh my God, the guy was this genius we got to work with, and he was so much fun to work with, and we had no idea what he was going to accomplish. And he created something huge.
Absolutely. Was there, because I don't want to, I know I pulled a lot of your time already because we were talking even before I even did the recording. Was there anything else, just so I make sure it's said, because so you're a very busy person. Was there anything else that you would want known about, Kevin, about your time working with LA Hero, Animaze, etc., that you would want to be known for this?
Well, I think looking back on it, and as more of a as someone with a little seasoning, um and looking back on who I was at the time, and coming into that at the time, um I would just say it was luck for all of us. I mean, we pulled a brass ring working with Kevin, and I don't know if we knew it at the time, but I think we all know it now.
Yeah.
And um I'm sad that he's gone, and I wish he was still here creating. But I appreciate and I'm thankful for every minute we had. It was so much fun. It developed us as actors, and we grew so much, and we had just a damn fine time doing it.
It sounds like it. I'm just a random person who just wanted to tell this story. I have no, besides my love for his work, I had no connection to any of this, and I appreciate you giving me your time, because that is
Oh,
a valuable thing. And
well, I appreciate you for your work and what you're doing. I think it's important, and I wish you all the best with this. I just really truly hope you can take it all the way, because I think it's a story that deserves to be told. And kudos to you.
Hi, post-production Aramis again. One last thing. Thank y'all so much for listening till after the credits. I wanted to let y'all know that the difference in audio quality was due to this interview being conducted over the phone. So it was recorded phone audio. I think it turned out really well. It taught me a lot about, if I were to do this again, how I would do it again. But I appreciate y'all sticking around. I got a few more episodes I'm baking up right now, so please stay tuned. Thank you so much for listening.